Hi, I'm Natalie Gregory, and the neighborhood that I am researching and presenting on is Brewers Hill, Baltimore. Brewers Hill is located in East Baltimore, and some of the surrounding neighborhoods include Canton, Greektown, Highlandtown, and not a neighborhood, but an important feature, the Canton Waterfront. Brewers Mill is a 26-block neighborhood, as I said, in eastern Baltimore. It is most known for the iconic two row houses, which were constructed between 1870 and 1940. The row houses, like I said, some iconic architecture in the district, were historically home to some breweries, meatpacking companies, and the well-known Crown Cork and Seal factory nearby. The neighborhood was originally home to many first and second generation German immigrants who staffed many of the businesses in the area. Another interesting fact about the neighborhood is that it was allowed to have so many like meatpacking factories, dairy yards, and other livestock related businesses that most areas were not allowed to have due to residential guidelines because the area known as Brewers Hill was not considered a part of the actual city of Baltimore, therefore a residential area, until 1918. Moving on to some of the population demographics in Brewers Hill, starting with race, we can see here we have some percentages that compare Brewers Hill to Baltimore City as a whole. As you might be able to see, the white demographic is 82% in Brewers Hill, around 25% for the whole of Baltimore. So there is a much larger um, white Caucasian population in Brewers Hill compared to the rest of Baltimore. The Hispanic population in Brewers Hill is around 7.3%, which is consistent, if not slightly higher than Baltimore City as a whole at roughly 5%. The African American population in Brewers Hill is 7.2%, which is drastically lower than the entire city of Baltimore, coming in around 65%. And then Asian and mixed populations are fairly consistent, being low in both Brewers Hill and Baltimore. These percentages were taken according to Statistic Atlas and were last updated in 2018. Coming from the same source, the Statistic Atlas, we have a chart here on the population demographic of age in Brewers Hill. This one also compares Brewers Hill to the rest of Baltimore, the Brewers Hill line being red and the Baltimore as a whole being the black line. You'll notice looking at this chart that the big takeaways are that the average population and the majority of the population in Brewers Hill are between the ages of 25 and 40, which they are definitely much more concentrated there than I would say the all of Baltimore is. Baltimore as a whole seems to be much more spread out among ages, whereas Brewers Hill is definitely, as I said, concentrated to that 25 to 40 age group, with obviously many people still belonging to either end of the spectrum. Here we have yet another population demographic, which is the average annual household income. Brewers Hill actually has a much higher average household income than Baltimore as a whole, nearly doubling it at $120,000 per household. And then similar to the chart on the age demographics, this is again from the same source. We can track the Brewers Hill income using our red line and the Baltimore as a whole using the black line. In this next part of the presentation, we'll start to look at the needs and resources of people living in Brewers Hill as a whole and begin to address ways that they are or are not fulfilled easily within Brewers Hill, starting with work. Employment is a very important part of any community. It is a very important thing to have accessible in residential areas as people need money. So the city of Baltimore as a whole provides many work opportunities for its residents, all easily accessible through a very user-friendly job search database that the city supplies just free online. They offer jobs at places like the Department of Recreation and Parks, the Department of Transportation, other city government jobs, but Brewers Hill, more specifically, has many stores, many restaurants, many employment opportunities that are within walking distance or within public transportation distance, which hence we'll talk about in a couple slides. But yes, there are many employment opportunities easily accessible to Brewers Hill, and even further out from Brewers Hill in the areas surrounding, such as the Towson, Timonium, and other parts of Baltimore, there are endless employment opportunities. While I said that the population demographic of race in Brewers Hill had a marginally larger white population than African American population, you should also remember how greatly that contrasted with Baltimore as a whole, and Brewers Hill is but a small part of Baltimore City, and Baltimore City is very proud of its African American culture. Some key examples that are recommended and highlighted on the Visit Baltimore website of ways to celebrate and enjoy African American culture are supporting local Black owned businesses, appreciating the rich jazz culture in Baltimore, as well as visiting many of the museums and historic sites throughout Baltimore, of which there are pictures being displayed currently. If you want to take in the culture, get to work, or do any of the things that we're going to talk about, you will need one thing, and that is transportation. Luckily, Brewers Hill is a very walkable area that also has excellent public transportation services thanks to Baltimore City. There are many MTA bus lines, including the free Charm City Circulator buses that connect to downtown Baltimore, the Canton and Baltimore water taxis, which are available in the Canton's waterfront, located less than a mile's walk from most parts of Brewers Hill, as well as, of course, people can own cars and there are Uber and Lyft services accessible. Now, another resource that everybody, not exclusive to people living in Brewers Mill, but everybody needs to have access to is food. Luckily for the residents of Brewers Hill, there are many grocery stores in walking distance or close public transportation distance, including but not limited to Aldi's, Harris Teeter, Sprouts Farmers Market, and many other small locally owned markets. While grocery shopping is a great way to save some money and eat healthier, it is not the only way to get food. So if you're not feeling like cooking, there are many restaurants in Brewers Hill that range from small and affordable options to more upscale places. And then, of course, as Brewers Hill is known for, and is also heavily implied in the name, there are a large range of breweries and cocktail bars in the area to try and enjoy and to really soak up the historic atmosphere of Brewers Hill. Yet another resource that residents of Brewers Hill will need access to is healthcare. I must say I was a bit unimpressed and with the accessibility of healthcare in Brewers Hill. That's not to say there isn't any. There is a hospital located in the northern part of Brewers Hill, and also a full care rehabilitation center about a mile away in Canton. There are two different urgent care facilities near Brewers Hill, but not really in walking distance. I say unimpressed, but that may be my bias coming from a more suburban area where there's an urgent care more easily accessible. But I do believe that residents living in Brewers Hill would be safe and have easy access to healthcare via ambulance, car, or public transportation whenever they needed it. Another resource I wanted to touch on is one that I think is often overlooked, but very important, especially to working parents and single parents, but childcare. So there are many daycare options in and around Brewers Hill. Some are more expensive and some are definitely, I'd say, more reliable seeming than others, but there are many affordable good options for your child. I have below some screenshots of different reviews of childcare. You have some that definitely don't seem like a place I want to send my child and get much lower reviews than others, but there is a broad spectrum and you would be able to find a place that is right for you within living distance, walking distance, transport distance of your residence in Brewersville. Another thing that's not on this slide, but I wanted to mention is there are children out of daycare ages who need educations. So luckily, Baltimore County Public Schools is a thriving school system that has many wonderful schools, and they are scattered throughout Baltimore City. They have, as I said, a great public transportation system and also a great bus system to get children to school. And in addition to the public school system, Baltimore City has many private academies and private schools to choose from if that is where you wish to send your child. While I certainly have not had the opportunity to touch on every single resource a family or just anybody living in Brewers Hill might need, the entertainment is going to be the final one I talk about. So there's lots of options of things to do in Brewers Hill, in the surrounding neighborhoods, and then as you expand your radius further into Baltimore City. You can visit the Canton Waterfront, which I have a picture of and will include more after this. It's about a half a mile to a mile walk from most places in Brewers Hill. It is gorgeous and has lots of green space and recreational area. You could go to a movie. There is a movie theater 20 minutes by bus from Brewers Hill. There are plenty of ice cream shops and restaurants within walking distance and public transport distance, as well as a beautiful shopping mall called Caton Crossing that is about half a mile's walk or drive or transport, whatever you would like, from Brewers Hill. There is also a photo attached of that to the right. I know the presentation is getting a bit long, but I'm just going to conclude by having some photos of the historical area of Brewers Hill, as well as some of the recreational areas